The tutorial on Godot 4.3 or Godot, I guess. If you have it installed, you need this in the .NET version and the .NET SDK 6.0. So first things first, you're going to open up the engine. You're going to see this screen. Pretty simple. Go over here, hit this plus button that says create, name it. I'm naming mine movement tutorial. Documents. Yeah, I'll leave it in documents. Whatever. I'm going to set mine to compatibility mode. It just determines what it will and won't be able to run on. Later, you can probably change it. I haven't messed with that yet. Also, this version control metadata, if you leave it at Git, it'll generate a Git ignore. I don't know if there is one for Bitbucket or anything. I always leave it there. It hasn't given me problems yet. So just hit create and edit and it'll open up the editor. Alright, so first things first, you're going to see this screen. As soon as it opens up, this is the 3D editor. We're making a 2D game, so we're going to go over here, top, and click this 2D. That'll set you up with this. Quick note, the purple line you see is the positive X, and positive Y is actually down. So if you want it to go up, you're going to have to reverse your Y. We'll see that in a little bit. Godot is made of nodes and scenes. I think scenes technically count as nodes, so first things first, you're going to come over here to this 2D scene. Click it, it'll create a new unsaved 2D scene. I'm gonna just name this game since this is the root of our game node, and then when you save it, a little dialog will come up here. You're gonna come over here. I like to organize mine similar to Unity just to keep it simple, so we're gonna create a scenes folder and then hit save in the scenes and you'll have a node. First things first, we need something for the player to interact with. This time we're going to do a platformer, so we're going to create a platform. Unity has prefabs where you just kind of build everything once and then it'll apply as a default to instances of that object. You can do the same thing in Godot with scenes. So we're going to come over here and make a platform scene, but because it's a specific kind of node or a specific kind of scene we want, we're going to make it a node instead. So instead of pressing 2D scene, we're going to click other node. It'll bring up this dialog option. What you're going to do is come down to this node 2D here that's blue under canvas item. Open that up. You'll see collision object 2D. Open that. Physics body 2D. Open that. And you'll see static body 2D. It's 2D physics body that can't be moved by external forces. I don't want the platform to fall every time the player touches it unless that's what it's supposed to do. And even then, there's another way to animate that. So create static body 2D. This is going to be our platform, so I'm just going to name it platform. And if you'll notice, it has this little triangle here that says node configuration warning. This node has no shape. It can't collide or interact with any other objects. This is because in Godot, you need a shape for any body, any physics body in the simulation or in the game. You can have multiple shapes per physics body, but each physics body can only be attached to one shape at a time. If you'll notice, I didn't put any prefabs in this, any like textures or anything. That's because Godot has this handy dandy icon.svg. So we're going to use that and just click and drag it in. It's something called a sprite 2D. It's named icon because it's icon.svg. So we're going to come over here to transform first of all and just reset it. Second thing, I like my okay, well, don't zoom in like that. Don't do this now. Okay, well, I like my platforms to be a little bit wider than they are tall, so we're going to come over here and do that. To do that, you're going to unclick this chain. That way the X and Y scale are two different things. And I'm just going to set the Y scale to 0.2. Okay, 0.2. There you go. Hit enter, and voila, we have a flat platform. I'm going to save that because it's a new scene. I'm going to do that. Put it in the scenes folder. So now you've got an icon, but as you can see, that doesn't technically count as a shape for the physics body. That's because it doesn't know what it's supposed to do. It's not properly outlined or anything. So we're going to come up here and auto-generate it by clicking this sprite 2D at the top. Come down to create collision polygon 2D sibling. Click that and you'll see this little dialog pop up. Now there's a few things at the bottom. Simplification has to do with how much it averages the pixels. I don't know the specifics, but it'll deal with how smooth or rough the edges are in the generated 2D shape. This is a platform. Grow and shrink pixels tells it how much to enlarge or shrink the pixels that it like counts as part of the physics body. So because this is a platform, I want this to be pretty exact, but I don't want it to be too close to the shape. So if you see simplification here and grow pixel 0 changes the shape to look something like this. It's a bit weird, it's a bit different, but that's okay. If I set this to 0, which will automatically change to 0.01 because you can't have no simplification. It'll do its best to perfectly match the pixels in the image, which you see results in a very rough curves over here, which isn't really ideal for a platform. You want to give your player some grace, some like chance to, oh, I barely made it on kind of thing. So what we're going to do is go back to 2, because if you set it to 1, it fixes it a little bit, but that's a little too much jaggedness for me that I like. So we're going to set it back to 2. Update preview. It's nice and smooth all around. There's still a little bit of grace at the edge, but not too much. We're going to go ahead and create collision polygon 2D sibling, and as you can see, it matches the image since we shrunk it. So even though the collision polygon 2D was generated from the sprite image, they're not linked. So if I click here to say I want my platforms to always spawn offset a little bit. Let's say I want to spawn over here. Well, I've just moved the collision polygon 2D, but the actual image is there. So when you play the game, you'll try to jump on the platform, it won't be there. The collision will be offset. You'll be confused as to why you're floating in the middle of a void when you miss the platform, but when you land on it, you fall through. So first things first, we're going to undo that. And then in order to do that in Godot, you can link two parent and child objects, but they need to be parent and child. So we're going to just drag this collision polygon 2D under the icon to make it its child, since that's what it came from. But as you can see, the errors are back. The same error as before up top, no shape, and now the collision polygon 2D has certified a collision shape to a collision object 2D derived node. Please use it as a child of an area 2D. It lists off a bunch of nodes you can use. The reason it works like this is because each physics body, the shapes have to be direct children of it. So if you want to link them, you'll have to do something different. So we can drag collision polygon 2D back under platform, and this time drag the icon underneath it. Now the icon is a child of it, and if you want to move them together, all you have to do is click this symbol up here that says group selected nodes, and then click the other, do it again. I'm pretty sure you can control click and do both at the same time, but either way, all you need to do is group them. If you want to ungroup them or change what is grouped, all you have to do is do that. Now if I move this node around, the entire thing, both the icon, which is the sprite 2D, and the physics body associated with it, or physics collision shape associated with it, moves as well. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to save this. And right, one more thing I should mention. Just like in Unity, Godot has collision masks and collision layers. So in order to change those, they're not associated with a specific shape, but they're associated with the physics body 2D and all the shapes that are attached to it. So if you click on this static body 2D, come down to this collision tab, and you'll see I like to keep my player on level 1 and my ground on level 2. So I'm going to move this over here. If you were to do the opposite, you wanted multiple ground tiles to collide, then you would set the layer to whatever you want, and then the mask would be something else. There's a way to rename these in Godot. I'm not going to go over that, but if you want to keep it up for a bigger game, or just to make it easier for yourself to read and remember, you can go in and rename these layers, and that'll help you keep track of that. So I'm going to save this, and then go over here. Now, like I said, scenes in Godot can act like prefabs in Unity, so we're just going to go ahead and drag this platform into the game. I'm going to put it just there, I guess. For now, that'll work. And then I want multiple platforms for us to jump between, so I'm going to put a second one about there. Boom. So now we have a, albeit really basic, game level that we can have a player interact with, but we don't have a player. So to create one, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did before. New scene, other node, and this time, instead of using the static body 2D that's under node 2D collision objects, physics body 2D, we're going to go with this character body 2D, and if you notice, it's a physics body specialized for characters moved by script. Since we're having a player and they're going to be moved by a script, we're going to create that. Once again, I'm just going to double click to rename it. We're going to name it player to remember what it is, and when you save it, I'm just going to save it under scenes again. So same problem as before. The player needs a shape. It can't collide or interact with other objects without a shape. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. Icon.svg to the win, or for the win. Come over here, reset its position, and because it's a player, it's not going to be the same size as the ground. And because we shrunk the ground before, we're going to have to shrink the player a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and relink these because I want my player to be the same height and width. If you want your player to be taller or wider, you can leave them unlinked and adjust each scale individually. I'm just going to make it 0.1 for this to make it really small. You'll see why later. And we'll save it. Same thing as before. Collision polygon duty, and because it's a player, I want this to be as close as humanly possible to what the player sizes, so we're going to make it exact, or simplification to 0, I should say. Update preview, that hug's pretty tight, it's good enough for me. Once again, icon to the child, control click both of them, and no, okay, you have to actually click and link them individually. Once again, that is this button up here, the group selected nodes. It doesn't do the buttons at the same time, but yeah, I got you. Yep. So now we've created a scene as a prefab for the player. Now we just need to put it in the game, right? All you gotta do is click and drag. I'm gonna put it above this platform so that it'll spawn in and we can use it. Any questions so far? I should make sure that since we've made the player. Questions, comments, concerns, good?
Oh. How do you get to the collision again?
Collision. So we're gonna come to, I actually didn't do this yet, I was gonna come back to it, but for the player, like I said, I like the player to be on layer 1. So we're gonna click on the root node.
Collision polygons 2D.
Collision polygon. So when you click on a sprite 2D, you'll see this little highlighted spot up here. Click it, you'll see create collision polygon 2D sibling. You'll click that. It'll generate a collision polygon 2D on the same layer as the icon that it was, or whatever you're generating it off of, really. And then I just click and drag the icon to be underneath as a child of the collision polygon 2D. And then I grouped it with the same buttons. Now, like I said, the player has to collide with stuff, so we're going to come back to the player, click on it. Collision, I said I like my player to be on layer 1. If you're making a multiplayer game and you want multiple players to interact with each other, let's say they can't pass through each other, they can't bump into each other, or they can climb on top of each other or something, then you can leave that mask. Platform and ground was on mask 2, was on layer 2, so we're going to mask that. That's going to tell it to check layer 2 as well as layer 1 when it's trying to determine whether or not it's bumped into something. So save that, go back to the game. And we've put our player in, so everything should work, right? When I press play, mentioning this, no main scene has ever been defined. So in Godot, there are 3 ways to run any part of your project. This big play button will run the entire project, starting from whatever you define as the root node or root scene of the game. There's multiple ways to do this. You can define one root now and then go into the settings and change it later. But the way you do that is, so since this is the current scene, I'm going to select current. It's going to run. I'm going to go over a few things. First of all, if you'll notice, this game looks really bad. I cannot see the player. He's way too far away, and he's not moving. This is supposed to be a game. He's supposed to fall. This is a platformer. It's kind of hard to play a platformer if you can't jump. Can't move him. Any of the movement keys, space isn't working. It's just static. We're going to fix that in a minute. But going back to running the game, you'll see these 3 buttons. This button that says run current scene, if you're making a level in your game and you've defined that level as a scene, then you can run that level individually by pressing this button. Or if, let's say, you have a moving platform and you're trying to update the speeds, instead of having to always go back to the main level scene and running that, or always having to run the entire project all the way through just to get there, you can click this button up here. This is going to quick run a scene. It'll let you select one, so then you can come up here, type in, search whatever the name of your level scene is, and click run, and it'll run that. So back to the game. If you notice, not only was the game very far away, but the player wasn't moving. We're going to rectify those one at a time. So first things first, come back to this player scene that we made, and we're going to click this plus button up here that says add child node. Come in here, and I don't know where exactly it's located, so we're just going to search it. We're going to search for camera. You'll see 3 cameras pop up. There's the XR camera 3D, which is for AR, VR, those kind of games. There's camera 3D, which is for a standard 3D game, one that's like follow around the player and stuff. And then there's camera 2D, which is what we're going to be doing because we're making a 2D game. There's probably a way to make one work with the other if you want to do some crazy things, but I don't know. So if you'll see, okay, let me zoom out a bit. I knew I should have got my other thing. If you'll see here, this purple is showing exactly what the camera is going to show, and it's a child of this player node, so it should move around with it. So now if we go over here and hit play again, now the camera is still centered on the player. It's still far away though, I really can't see it. My eyesight's bad, I have glasses. So we're gonna come over here to zoom, and I'm gonna change this to 5. I've just found that that's what works best for this. But zoom is just how close to the player the camera is gonna be. I don't know exactly how it's calculated, but you can zoom. If you want it to be smaller, you go either negative or no, if you want it to be smaller, you go bigger. If you want it to be the FOV to be bigger, then you can make the zoom smaller. But now when we hit play,
How'd you get to zoom?
yeah, so you're gonna go, no problem. Click on player, click on camera, or if you've put the camera in, then you just click on camera, and it'll be right here under the camera 2D scenes thing. I'll talk about how this is structured in a bit, but just know that this is going to be quite useful in a bit. So now we come over here to game, hit play. I said this, it's close now, I can see it, but I still can't move. Now, if you remember when we created this player node in the first place, or this character body 2D node, it said it's specialized for movement. And that's really helpful because we're going to attach a movement script to it so we can move our player. So if you come up here, you'll see this attach a new or existing script to the selected node. Click that and this little language thing will pop up, this little creation dialog will pop up. Click on the GD script for the language button and select C# because I didn't program this in GD script. And then you'll notice it inherits from character body 2D. That's helpful for now. Usually you'll just inherit from the node that you're currently in, but if you want to be efficient or there are other reasons that you might want to cast it as something, some other kind of node. I won't get into that for now, but what I will get into is you see this template right here. If you click it, drop down, you'll see character body 2D basic movement, node default, and object empty. Those are three different kinds of things. So like I said in Godot, everything is basically a node. That's the default template, but because we have a character body 2D and it's specialized for movement, Godot has a pre-built character movement script, which will generate automatically. Now, like I said, I want to organize my stuff like it's Unity, and in Unity, you don't store scripts in the same folder that you store objects, scenes, whatever they're called. So I'm going to come back here to this change where it's stored. Going to go up to the root of the directory, which is res. Come up here, new folder, scripts. Then in scripts, we're going to save player.cs and click open. And you see here, script path name is valid. We'll create a new script file. Click create. It'll open up. Now I've set my Godot up to open up VS Code anytime I click on any of this script, anything script related. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But for now, it'll open up in this script tab over here. If you want to come back to 2D, you'll just click this. It's really quick and easy to do. So if you'll notice, we've got some standard variables. But one thing you will notice if you're familiar with Unity or maybe some other game engine is that all of the input handling is done in the physics process. That's because in Godot, although it does have an input handler and input handling processes, if you want to do things that involve holding down keys for, let's say, movement, the input has a weird delay that makes that a little bit more difficult to do. So most people take care of processing or input processing in the physics process itself. There's some basic variables: speed, jump velocity. The reason that you see this down here, this vector2 velocity equals velocity, is because in Godot, these variables that are pre-built in are not directly editable. You can only assign and check them. So you have to assign it to a local variable, update the local variable, and then reassign it at the end. Just some more stuff. Is on floor just checks to see if it's on a floor, or if you have the ceiling, there's a toggle to set the ceiling, the floor, and the walls to be the same thing. If you have that on, it'll check anything that's considered a floor, which is anything you have on in the toggle. And this is just adding gravity. And then you'll see, this is what we really care about. So input.isAction just pressed and input.getVector. So isAction just pressed, and there's another function that's called isAction pressed. That will tell you if somebody is either currently pressing or has only pressed like the first frame or first time interval, basically, that the physics engine is running. This is how it's applying jump velocity. You'll come down here, like I said before, velocity is reassigned, and we'll get into these UI accept, UI left, right stuff in a minute. But the last thing I wanted to mention is this move and slide. There are a few ways pre-built into Godot to handle character collision with bodies and other physics bodies. Move and slide is the default. That's what I'd recommend you leave it as. But yeah, so all you have to do here is go ahead and save the script that auto-generated. Then you'll go back to this 2D node, to the player, save that. And if you'll notice, this player now has this script icon here that says it has a script. This is just, if you click this, it'll just quick open up that script that's associated with it. It's just a quick way to navigate back and forth. Now, mentioning what I was saying before, if you want to add anything, if you want to have yours open a specific text editor, code editor, quickly running over this, if you click on project, go to project settings, come down to hold on. Editor text.
Does anyone else have any questions at the moment? Or?
Yeah. Any questions about anything? We're still good? Everybody caught up? Anybody need to slow down, speed up, do a backflip?
I couldn't get the script to attach. I tried to click on it. It didn't have an option for these shows.
Let me.
I just tried to overdo it.
All right, so we're going to go to what is it? I think it's editor settings. Yes, okay, editor settings. Then you come down here to text editor, and you'll see this external. If you click this, you can click use external editor, and then you'll go to exec path and search for the path to whatever program you want to open up. As you can see here, mine is set to open up VS Code. And then this is the command line arguments for VS Code to open a specific file at a specific location. If you're not using VS Code, then it'll look different from this. You'll have to look up that stuff yourself. So we're going to close out of this. But now, if we run the project with the play button, and it builds properly, boom, we have gravity. And if you'll notice, you can use the arrow keys to move back and forth and space to jump. You know, pretty simple game. But if you'll notice, you can only use the arrow keys to move when you're playing the character. And I don't know about you guys, but I like using WASD to move my character in specific ways. So we're going to go ahead and change that. So if you go up here to Project, click on Project Settings, you'll see you're at the Generals tab, or the General tab. If you look to the right of it, you'll see Input Map. Click on that, and it's empty. Not supposed to do that. So if you come over here to show built-in actions, you'll see all of the predefined actions for Godot in Unity. If you just plug and play these into your code, it'll work. And if you'll notice, some of these are familiar. UI accept, UI left, UI right, those were the same names that were in our code before. Now, while these are great, I want to use WASD, and that's not pre-built in. So first things first, we're going to come over here and create our own. Turn that off just for simplicity's sake. And I'm going to call my action game underscore left. And hit enter or hit this add button. It'll create a new category. Then you're going to come over to this plus on the side of the category that says add event. And this little dialog will pop up. There's 3 different ways to add inputs. You can either come down here to these. You can go to this filter inputs. And since we're moving left, I'm going to click A, and you'll see everything with an A in it. It's just a search bar. So hit A, scroll down to A. Add that. I don't want it to be Alt-Shift, Control, or any other special button, so we're just going to see physical key code on the US QWERTY keyboard. That's the default one. Click Select or click Add, and it'll pop up. Now, if we press A while using this game underscore left input map, anything underneath it will count as game left, and it'll send the same signal. But I also want to respect everybody who's using the original or arrow keys. So we're going to come up here and we're going to hit the left arrow key and this listening for event. That is where you can just hit whatever key you want it to use, and it'll just find it automatically. That's usually the easiest way to do it. The third way, I'm going to show this off just because if you want to use put joypad support, then you're going to come down here and click joypad axes, and this will be like moving the actual thumbsticks left and right. I'm going to set joypad axis 0, which is left stick joystick 0 left, and that's just moving the left thumbstick left. And that's going to be my game left. But I also want to do the same thing for game right, since left and right is what we were caring about for this game. So you're going to come up here, you're going to go game underscore right, and do the same thing again. So plus D, okay, plus right, okay, and then joypad axes plus. When you're selecting left and right for the joypad, make sure you know if you're clicking the one with the minus or the one with the plus. The one with the minus is whatever direction that it would normally be plus or minus on a number line. So just keep that in mind. It's increasing or decreasing. Is everybody good? Does anybody have any questions? Anybody stuck? Can't find it? Good. Good. Okay. Go ahead and close that. We're going to go back to the player script. So if you go over here and click on this, it should pull it up very quickly. Now we're going to come down here to where it says UI left and replace that with game left. spell it correctly too. And then UI right, same thing. Save that, put this down, and now you'll notice, okay, this is might be out of date. If you hit the play button, start the game. Once it loads, you'll now be able to use A and D in addition to the arrow keys on your keyboard. That's good for me. Okay, one more thing. Right now, as you just saw, if you fall, you just fall for eternity. There is nothing to stop you. The game won't automatically close or anything. Nothing happens. So we're going to add a death plane to reconcile that so that people can't just fall for eternity and not know what's going on. So to do that, I'm going to show you how to, before we've been using prefabs, but you don't have to use prefabs. You can just do everything directly with the scene. I'm going to show you how to do that. Same thing as before, click on game and come up here and click this add child node. Get rid of the filter. And we're going to come to node 2D, collision object 2D. And instead of going to physics body 2D, we're going to select area 2D, a region of space that detects other collision object 2Ds that enter it or exit it. We're going to create a new one and rename it to death plane. Okay, well, if I don't hit caps lock, we are. You'll notice it has the same problems. Despite not being a physics body 2D, it still needs some sort of shape. So to give it that, we're going to right click on death plane, add child node, and come down here to node 2D, and instead of going to collision object 2D, which would be, you know, the sensible thing to do, we're just going to scroll down and click collision shape 2D, and you'll notice right above it collision polygon 2D. I have no idea why they don't count as collision bodies. They just count as shapes, I guess. I don't know. They're not in the same thing, but whatever. I digress. We're going to create a new collision shape 2D, but you'll notice now that the death plane has a shape, this collision shape 2D also needs a shape. So if you click on it, you'll notice this dialog come up over here in the inspector. Come down to shape, click on it, and we're going to click new rectangle shape 2D. And if you see this up here, which, okay, it's not going to zoom properly. If you see this little shape up here that is at the origin, that is now our collision shape 2D. This right here. But that is not a great place because the player will probably never go up there, and also it's not nearly the right size. So I'm just going to go ahead and stretch it out like this, move it under to, we'll put it about here, and boom, and we'll save it. So now we have a collision shape 2D that has a shape, and that's talking to our death plane. Make sure if you want it to work, it is a collision body. So we're going to come over here, just double checking. I'm putting this on layer 3 just for simplicity's sake. I don't care if it touches the ground, I only care if it touches the player. So I'm only going to leave the mask at collision 1. Make sure to save often because I've never had Godot crash randomly, but I'm sure there's some circumstances where it can, and it's also just great practice to save often. I'm going to now introduce you to a new concept in Godot. It's called signals. So usually if you wanted to kill the player in, let's say, Unity or some other game engine, you'd have to set up a script in the player that detects whether or not it's collided with the area in either itself or some other manager script, and then you'd have to set up some actions based on that. Godot has a really easy built-in way to do this that's a lot less code. Trust me, I tried it with doing it with code, and it's called signals. So if you come over here to this inspector and you switch to the node tab, you'll see this really long list of signals that are built into Godot. You can define custom ones with code. I'm not getting into that because that's complicated and annoying and doesn't always work. But if you'll notice, there are various different tabs. Each, like I said, everything in Godot stems from a node, and you'll see the inheritance tree represented usually in these signals because all of them have different signals. So let's say if we click on the platform, you'll notice that it's missing a set of signals that we had before. That's because platform is not a area 2D. It doesn't have its own specific set. It only has everything it inherited from above. Player, same thing, only collision body 2D. You can define custom ones if you want to, but that'll be in a different tutorial. And then if you go to collision shape, you'll notice it has even less. That's because collision shape 2D isn't actually an object in Godot. It's just a different definition for another object. So we'll click back on the area 2D. I named it death plane, and you'll see some of these signals. We care about the player entering the shape or the area. So if we were to use area entered, it's only emitted when it received area enters this area. Player 2D is not an area, so that's not going to work. Then we have area shape entered, which is a different signal. Okay. Which is a different signal, but it's emitted when a shape 2D of the received area enters the shape of this area and requires monitoring to be set to true. That's a whole lot of jargon, and it doesn't work for player body 2D. At least it didn't last time I checked. So we're going to ignore all that, and we're going to look at body entered. Emitted when the received body enters this area. Body can be a physics body 2D or a tile map. If you remember, our player was under the category physics body 2D. We know this works. Go ahead and double click it, or select it, and then double click it if it lets you. Boom, okay. Just keep double clicking until it works. Everybody up with me so far on signals? Okay. So this little dialog pops up, and you'll see this from signal, body enter, that's the name of the signal, and we're connecting it to something. So if you select these, you'll see which objects have a script and which don't. They need to have a script to connect, at least in C# they do. It'll generate a script sometimes when you need it to. You'll notice a few things. First, you can filter nodes, so if you know the name of the node or you know what type of node it is, you can come up here and filter it, and it'll show you a list. Second of all, you'll see this received method name and this pick button. Now, if you click this pick button, it'll show up blank because it's only showing 1 compatible methods and 2 script methods. Now, in Godot, there are some built-in things that signals that you can connect to each other. If you had one defined in the script that was valid, you'd be able to just come here when you clicked it, when you try to connect it, double click, open this up, and you would see it predefined here. You could select it, hit OK, hit connect, and everything would work out fine. But we don't have one predefined. I'm going to create one now. So I'm just going to name it, this is Snake Case Godot, GD script, which is Godot's like proprietary script, uses Snake Case, but this is C#, so we're just going to rename it in, what is it called? Pascal case. So on death plane entered, and just click connect. You'll see this down here that says it's connected, and that means it's set up to work properly. Doesn't mean it will work properly. Everybody good so far? Because this next part is code. Okay. So hit save. And you'll notice in that dialog before, it said it will not generate a receiver method. If we come and open up the script here, it will not generate the method. It didn't generate the method. I'm going to set this method up above the physics process. That's just because how I like to do things. We're going to come up here, go public, void, and then on death plane entered. It has to be named the same because that's the name of the signal. That's the name of the method it's going to attempt to call once that signal is triggered. Remember, we're in C# here, so you have to have this below the definition. And for now, just to test if it works, I'm going to put a print statement. To do that in Godot, it's just gd.print. And we're going to be dead. That's how we should know. Go ahead and click save. Go back to this 2D script. Let's test it. Hit play. And we'll follow through. Oh, nothing happened. My player didn't die. Nothing came in the output. And there's an error. So if we go over here to see what the error is, it says error calling from signal body entered to callable the player on death plane entered method not found. But I know for a fact we just defined the method on death plane entered. That's because if you remember when we went to link the signal, it has a specific method signature. So that means that whatever method that it calls has to have the same signature and match it, because that's the input it's giving, and that's the input it needs to have. So we're going to come up here, and I said everything in Godot was a node, so we're just going to name it node n. And now we've got the same method signature because the body entered signal emits a node 2D as that's in the method signature, and we're just putting a super object of that object in the inheritance tree. So now when we come here, hit play, assuming that all the collision is set up properly, dead. It prints dead. Now in Godot, so we want to destroy the player when they die so that they can't keep playing the game. So we're just going to go this dot q free, I think, q free. This, okay, well, cute free. This will destroy this object and all objects attached to it. So hit, we're gonna say this, make sure you save it, come back here, and boom. Player died, camera went away because the camera is directly attached to the player. So the camera went away too, and we're back to the default camera. But you can't play anymore. You have to quit the game by hitting X. And yeah, that's how you make a basic movement tutorial and basic 2D platformer in Godot. Now let's say for a bonus here, you want the character to respawn. Then you would have to do something like this dot position equals, remember you can't update the position, you have to set it. So new vector 2, and then we'll just look at see where the player starts out. Since I'm not doing all that, you go ahead and expand transform. My X is at 68 pixels, so we're just gonna go 68 and 10, because remember positive Y is down. Hit save. Now my player should respawn every time he falls past it. So, oh no, failed to jump, start over. And it can do this for ever. Yeah, that's the basic movement tutorial in Godot. Were there any questions anybody had? Questions, comments, concerns? Everybody caught up? Everybody got it working? Cool.
Good job.